The book that we will be talking about today, and I promise to try and not lose my shit the way I did last time, is called The Greatest Game. It's also by Todd Denault. You may remember the last book we read by Todd Denault, which was Jacques Plante, excuse me. And this book means everything to me. I'm afraid to show you this book because it has kind of gotten trashed because I've read it 14 times and carried around in my purse on many trips. But it is a really absolute must read for any hockey fan. So this book is about the Summit Series and has a really wonderful and unbiased look at both teams as they were at the time and society as it was at the time and what was happening in hockey and all kinds of fun stuff. And again, it's written by Todd Denault, who is exceptional. So if you like tales of drunk goalies and Ken Dryden being incredibly salty and Canada losing its shit and Anatoly Tarasov throwing a fit on the ice and all sorts of other wonderful things, this book is the book for you. It does a really great job of looking at both the Russian team on its own merits and then looking at Team Canada on its own merits and then looking at them both within the context of the time that they were playing in. So it's a really great book. 4,000 out of 10 recommend it. I mean, I am really fascinated by Soviet hockey. I really think it was just incredible to watch. This book does a really good job of explaining the differences between Canadian and Soviet hockey, beyond just the, obviously Soviet hockey, everyone always says was a passing game, and that is true, but you could only hear that so many times before you're like, okay, give me some new information. So the Summit Series, for those of you, I'm sure everyone sort of has an idea of what they were, but they were really important for more reasons than just Canada was surprised by losing. I think that the Summit Series was the first time when Canada actually had to face the fact that Russia was competition in a way that they had, I really think, never actually experienced competition within ice hockey before. I talk a lot of shit, but I think we all know that hockey really is Canada's game in terms of international play. They have always dominated on the international stage, and the Summit Series was the first time when that didn't happen. They really were shocked and really had to take a look into their hearts and talk to Jesus about why the fact that these weirdos who came out on the ice and were doing gymnastics and skated very slowly and seemed to be playing ice soccer were beating them. And that's a really interesting thing to look at. I think that it really can't be overstated how much that fucked up Canada. They really had to have a come to Jesus moment. And I think that's really interesting. I know that, especially in women's hockey, we haven't really had that moment yet. I think the US obviously is enormously competitive, but Canada still runs that racket, man. So this is it's a really interesting look at a piece of, I think, Canadian, but also hockey history that was really pivotal because it was the time when Russia kind of came bursting in on the international scene, even though by the 72 Summit Series, they had already won gold medals. I mean, they were already on the international scene in terms of the Olympics, but there was this prevailing attitude, particularly in Canada, who hadn't been sending professionals to the Olympics, that they were good competition for Canadian minor leagues and for Canadian, young players. But if you were to really send, an NHLer over there, Russia would get totally plowed over. And then, in the first game of the Summit Series, Russia just handed Canada its ass, a punch in the mouth. Except not really, because the Russians looked down on fighting in that way. Because of course they did. So yeah, it's a really good story. It's hard to read because I always want Russia to win, and I don't understand how any Canadian viewers don't hate me. But I can't help it. They're the underdog, and I love the underdog. So it's really fascinating, and I will never forgive Canada for breaking Kharlamov's ankle. I just won't. You're never getting forgiven. You just have to accept that you were the bad guy. Passage that I am going to read you is a really, really, really delightful tactic on the part of the Soviet team, who knew that they were the underdog and knew that Canada looked down on them and knew that they were coming into an arena that was going to be very contemptuous. Right before the first game, the Soviets basically decided to fuck with Team Canada. Phenomenal. Before the watchful eye of Team Canada, the Russians had spent the days before the opening game deliberately practicing at a slow speed. At this, their final practice, they continued the charade. In their display of ineptitude, they seemed to confirm the opinions that McClellan and Davidson had brought back from Russia in their scouting report. Their shots often appeared soft, their defensemen clumsy, and their goalie, Tretiak, seemed stuck deep in his net, flubbing shot after shot. Their laissez-faire attitude led many to question whether the Soviets were even taking this whole event seriously. Among the Canadian media, many of whom had never seen Russians up close and in person until 5 days ago, the vast majority believed that the Soviet squad was overmatched, a fact confirmed in an informal poll taken by the Montreal Gazette. The hyperbole was not limited to the media, however, as Alan Eagleson, the organizer of the series, boldly proclaimed, "We gotta win in 8 games. Anything less than an unblemished sweep of the Russians would bring shame on the heads of the players and the national pride." The glowing media prediction of their own dominance, the Russians' poor practices, the scouting reports, all of it trickled down to Team Canada. Even Ken Dryden, the most thoughtful of the Canadian players, briefly wondered aloud if the Russians weren't somehow putting on a show for Canada's benefit. But just as quickly as the thought appeared, he had banished it from his mind, the sheer confidence of his fellow teammates swaying him. Along with the rest of the team, he came to believe that Team Canada would defeat the Russians pretty easily. The Soviet deception was complete. I love it so much, I can't even tell you. So that is this book. It's a lot like that. I mean, it's really well written, it's really engaging, and it's very funny, it's very human. So I definitely recommend it if you are looking to pick up some new reading material. You could not go wrong with The Greatest Game.